I remember that day with perfect clarity. The kind of memory that burns itself into your mind, where every detail remains vivid, no matter how much you wish it would fade. It was a Thursday in late April, the kind where spring finally commits to staying. I'd spent the afternoon planting tomatoes in our backyard garden while waiting for Sarah to return from her conference in Chicago. When her Uber pulled into our driveway, I noticed something different immediately. She practically floated from the car, her face lit with an energy I hadn't seen in months. Not with me, anyway. "How was the conference?" I asked, wiping soil from my hands as she wheeled her suitcase through the door. "Amazing," she said, her eyes bright with something I couldn't quite place. "The presentations were incredible. I learned so much." She kissed me quickly, too quickly, and headed upstairs with her luggage. I followed, leaning against the doorframe of our bedroom as she unzipped her suitcase. "Did you make any good connections?" I asked, watching as she carefully sorted through her clothes. "A few," she said, smiling to herself in a way that made my stomach tighten. The networking events were really productive. I was about to ask another question when her phone buzzed. She lunged for it with such urgency that she knocked over her toiletry bag, spilling its contents across the bed. Something flashed in her eyes. Panic? As she quickly scooped everything back into the bag. "Fine, just work stuff. I should probably shower. The flight was gross." As soon as I heard the water running, something pulled me toward her suitcase. Call it instinct or intuition. Whatever it was, it felt like gravity. My hands moved almost of their own accord, lifting layers of conference materials and neatly folded clothes until I found it, a small paper bag tucked into the corner. Inside was black lace lingerie I'd never seen before, with a handwritten note that made my world collapse around me. My hands trembled as I carefully replaced everything. The shower was still running, giving me just enough time to check our shared phone account on my laptop. There it was. Dozens of calls, to and from the same number over the past 3 months. Marcus Lawson. I sat on the edge of our bed, the mattress we'd chosen together 5 years ago, and felt the room spin around me. When Sarah emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, I excused myself, mumbling something about needing to finish in the garden. Instead, I sat in my car in the garage, hands gripping the steering wheel, until my knuckles turned white, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. That night, I waited until she fell asleep. Her phone was charging on her nightstand, the soft blue light blinking occasionally. The passcode was my birthday, something that now felt like a cruel joke. My fingers moved mechanically, opening her messages. I didn't have to search long. "Marcus, still thinking about last night. The way you looked in that elevator. Marcus, can't wait for Miami. 2 whole days. No conferences, no excuses." There were photos too. Intimate ones. My wife's body, the body I thought I knew better than my own, posed for someone else's eyes. I felt physically ill, stumbling to the bathroom just in time to empty my stomach. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the hollow-eyed man staring back at me. For 3 days, I lived in a fog of disbelief. I went to work, came home, ate dinner with Sarah, and slept beside her, all while carrying this knowledge like a burning coal in my chest. I watched her laugh at TV shows, talk about her day, and kiss me goodnight, all while wondering if she was thinking of him. On the 4th day, something inside me broke. We were having breakfast when her phone buzzed with a text. The small smile that crossed her lips was all it took. "Marcus, the guy you've been calling, the guy who's excited about Miami, the guy who likes your new lingerie. That's what you're concerned about? Not the fact that you're cheating on me?" "Don't," my voice cracked. "Don't insult me by lying. I saw the messages. I saw the pictures, Sarah. 4 months. 16 weeks of lies. While I was planning our summer vacation, while I was talking about starting a family, she was with him." I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. "I need to get out of here." "What exactly am I waiting for, Sarah? For you to explain why you've been fucking someone else while I've been here thinking we were happy? For you to tell me it didn't mean anything? Which lie would you prefer to start with?" I laughed, a harsh sound I didn't recognize. "Well, congratulations on your spectacular failure." I grabbed my keys and wallet, not bothering to change out of my pajama pants and t-shirt. As I reached the door, she called after me. I drove aimlessly for hours, eventually ending up at a park where we'd had our 3rd date. We'd laid on a blanket, pointing out cloud shapes and planning futures that now seemed like cruel jokes. I sat on a bench and finally let the tears come, great heaving sobs that left me gasping for air. My phone buzzed repeatedly with Sarah's calls and messages, each one stoking my anger higher. How dare she act concerned now? Where was that concern when she was sending another man pictures of her body, when she was planning their Miami getaway? By evening, rage had crystallized into something cold and hard in my chest. I wasn't just angry at Sarah. I was furious at myself. For being blind. For being the trusting husband. For being the fool. When I finally returned home, Sarah was sitting on the couch, eyes red and swollen. About what? Your business trips? Your late nights at the office? How many of those were with him? No, I cut her off. You don't get to beg now. You had months to come clean. Months to end it. Months to think about what this would do to us. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is burning dinner. This? I gestured between us. This was a choice. Every text, every call, every lie, you chose that. Over and over again. She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. Some distant part of me wanted to comfort her, a reflex from 7 years of marriage. But the larger part, the wounded animal part, wanted her to hurt as badly as I did. I whirled around. Is it? Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like a stage set where I've been playing the role of devoted husband while you've been laughing behind my back. Then what was it like, Sarah? Explain it to me. Help me understand how the woman I've loved for 7 years, the woman I wanted to have children with, could do this. That night, in a sterile hotel room, I stared at the ceiling and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The shock was wearing off. The pain was still there. God, was it there? But something else was emerging from the wreckage. Resolve. 3 days in a hotel room gave me clarity. I wasn't going to be a victim in this story. I wasn't going to beg Sarah to choose me or plead for another chance. She had made her choice long before I discovered the truth. Now it was time to make mine. I contacted David Mercer, an old college friend who'd become a private investigator. We met at a coffee shop far from my neighborhood. I need evidence, I told him after explaining the situation. Not just for the divorce, for me. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. David nodded, his expression professionally neutral. What do you know so far? His name is Marcus Lawson. They're planning a trip to Miami in 2 weeks. They've been seeing each other for at least 4 months. That's enough to start with, David said, making notes. What are you hoping to find? Everything. How often they meet, where, if there are others I don't know about, and I want proof of the Miami trip. David studied me carefully. James, are you sure about this? Sometimes knowing everything just makes it harder. He agreed to take the case, and for the next week I lived in a strange limbo. I returned home, sleeping in our guest room, while Sarah alternated between tearful pleas for forgiveness and defensive justifications. She'd moved from "it just happened" to "we've been growing apart" to "I was going to end it after Miami." Meanwhile, David was sending me regular updates. Marcus Lawson was 38, a pharmaceutical sales representative who traveled to the same conferences as Sarah. He was married with 2 children. They met at hotels, usually after work on Thursdays. They'd been planning the Miami trip for months, a fake conference for her, a boys' weekend for him. The evidence piled up. Photos of them entering a hotel together, screenshots of their text exchanges that David had somehow obtained, receipts for gifts Marcus had bought her. Each new piece of information was a knife twist, but also a confirmation that I wasn't crazy, that my decision was justified. I met with a divorce attorney named Richard Bennett, bringing copies of everything David had gathered. Illinois is a no-fault state, Richard explained, so technically, we don't need evidence of infidelity for the divorce. But this documentation will be useful if she contests the division of assets, or if there's any question about the timeline of separation. I want this to be clean, I said. Fair, but clean. I don't want to drag it out. Richard nodded. Based on what you've shown me, we're in a strong position. No children, both employed, relatively straightforward assets. We can file as soon as you're ready. Then it should remain yours, though she may be entitled to some compensation for improvements made during the marriage. I left his office with a plan and a timeline. The divorce papers would be ready in a week, just before Sarah's planned Miami trip with Marcus. In the meantime, I had one more card to play. It took some digging, but I found Marcus's wife on social media. Elaine Lawson worked as a kindergarten teacher and posted pictures of her family regularly. A beautiful home, 2 young daughters. and the man who was sleeping with my wife. I debated for days about contacting her, weighing my desire for justice against the knowledge that I would be shattering another home. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. Elaine deserved to know, just as I had deserved to know. I sent her a simple message. I believe our spouses are having an affair. I have evidence if you want to see it. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. She responded within hours, and we arranged to meet at a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. When she arrived, I almost lost my nerve. She looked so normal, so unsuspecting, just like I had been. "Are you sure about this?" she asked after we'd introduced ourselves, her voice steady but her hands trembling around her coffee cup. "I wish I wasn't," I said, and passed her my phone with the photos David had taken. I watched her face as she scrolled through them. The shock, the disbelief, and finally, the grim acceptance. When she looked up, her eyes were dry but changed, as if something had hardened behind them. Elaine handed back my phone. "Thank you for telling me. It couldn't have been easy." We parted with an awkward handshake, two strangers united by betrayal. As I watched her walk to her car, shoulders squared with new resolve, I felt a weight lift from mine. Whatever happened next, the truth was out. No more secrets, no more lies. The Miami trip was scheduled to begin on Friday. I had the divorce papers delivered to our home on Thursday morning. Touchy. I was in the kitchen when Sarah came in, holding the envelope, her face ashen. "Exactly what it looks like," I replied, continuing to make my coffee as if it were any other morning. I turned to face her. "Just like that? Sarah, you'd been having an affair for months. You were planning to spend this weekend with him. What exactly did you think was going to happen? We are talking about it. This is me telling you that I'm not interested in working through your betrayal." "Stop calling it a mistake," I said, my voice rising. "A mistake is something you do once. You've been lying to me for months. You were going to keep lying if I hadn't found out." "No, you knew exactly what you were doing." I placed my phone on the table between us. "Would you like to see the hotel photos? The text messages? Should we talk about how you told him our marriage was basically over? How you complained about me to him?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I know everything now. And so does Elaine." "I had every right," I said, my voice deadly calm, "just like I had the right to know my wife was cheating on me, just like Elaine had the right to know her husband was cheating on her. Or does your happiness matter more than everyone else's?" Her phone began ringing. She glanced at it, then back at me with panic in her eyes. "That would be Marcus," I said. "Elaine confronted him last night. I imagine he's calling to tell you the Miami trip is off." Sarah answered the phone, turning away from me. I could hear Marcus's frantic voice on the other end, though not his exact words. Sarah's responses told me enough. "I don't know how they found out." "Yes, he knows everything." "No, I haven't signed anything yet." "Of course he's not," I said, feeling a strange calm. "Men like Marcus don't leave their wives. They just lie to women like you." "Is it? Or is it just the truth you don't want to hear?" I took a sip of my coffee. "The divorce papers are straightforward. I keep the house since it was mine before we married. We split our savings and investments equally. You keep your car, I keep mine. No alimony since we both earn similar incomes." I've had time to think. While you were planning your Miami getaway, I was planning my future, a future without lies. It was gone the moment you decided to betray everything we built together. I stood up, suddenly tired of the conversation. "Sign the papers, Sarah. Make this one thing easy." I shrugged. "Then we do it the hard way. My lawyer has copies of everything. The photos, the texts, the hotel receipts. I'm sure Marcus's wife has similar evidence by now. How do you think that would look at your company? The one where fraternization between sales reps and medical liaisons is strictly prohibited? I'm giving you a choice, a clean break or a messy one. Unlike you, I'm being honest about the consequences." I left her sitting at the kitchen table with the divorce papers and drove to work, feeling strangely light. For weeks, I'd carried the weight of her betrayal, the burden of knowledge without action. Now, finally, I was taking control of my narrative. That evening, when I returned home, the signed papers were on the counter. Sarah was gone, a note beside the documents. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I'm staying with my sister for a while. I'm sorry for everything. S." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. I'd won, but what exactly had I won? The right to start over at 35? The knowledge that the woman I'd loved had never really existed? I poured myself a whiskey, and sat on my back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed too beautiful for such an ugly day. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Thought you should know. Marcus Lawson's wife went public, posted everything on social media, tagged his company. He's been placed on administrative leave pending investigation." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth had a way of finding daylight, with or without my help. The divorce was finalized with surprising speed. Sarah didn't contest anything, and with both of us agreeing to terms, the process took just under 3 months. We communicated only through our lawyers, a sterile exchange of documents and signatures that reduced 7 years of marriage to legal terminology and asset divisions. I heard through mutual friends that Sarah had been transferred to another division at her company, a lateral move that many recognized as damage control after the Marcus scandal broke. He hadn't been so lucky. Elaine had filed for divorce and gone public with the affair, posting evidence on social media and contacting his employers. He'd lost his job and, from what I gathered, most of his friends. I took no pleasure in their downfall. The initial satisfaction of exposure had faded, leaving only a dull ache where my anger had been. Some nights I still woke up reaching for Sarah only to remember she was gone, not just from my bed but from my life. Those moments were the hardest, when muscle memory betrayed my conscious resolve. My friends rallied around me in ways I hadn't expected. Mike and Jason, college buddies I'd gradually lost touch with during my marriage, suddenly reappeared with invitations to basketball games and hiking trips. My brother Tom, who had never particularly liked Sarah, helped me repaint the bedroom and rearrange furniture, physically transforming the space we had shared. "You know what you need?" Tom said one Saturday as we installed new shelves in what had been Sarah's closet. "A hobby. Something just for you." He was right. During my marriage, I'd gradually abandoned the things I'd once loved. Photography, mountain biking, playing guitar. They'd seemed less important than building a life with Sarah, and she'd never shared those interests. Now, with empty hours stretching before me, I had the chance to reclaim them. I started small. I dusted off my camera and began taking weekend drives to state parks, capturing landscapes and wildlife. I joined a local cycling group that met on Sunday mornings. I signed up for guitar lessons at a music store downtown, fumbling through chords I'd once known by heart. None of it filled the void completely, but each activity added a layer of new experiences over the painful memories. Slowly, I began to recognize myself again, not as Sarah's husband or as a betrayed man, but as James. Just James. 6 months after the divorce, I met with Elaine for coffee. We'd kept in sporadic contact, checking in on each other during the worst of the legal battles. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, her smile more genuine. "Adjusting," she said. "Kids are resilient. More resilient than us, probably." She considered the question. "Better. Not great, but better. I'm teaching full-time again. It helps to have purpose." We shared a laugh, a genuine one, born not of happiness but of mutual understanding. "Do you regret knowing?" I asked, the question that had circled my mind for months. She thought for a moment. "No. The truth hurt, but the lies were killing me slowly. I just didn't know it." She tilted her head. "What about you?" We parted with a hug, two survivors of the same storm, heading in different directions but wishing each other safe passage. That conversation marked a turning point. I stopped checking Sarah's social media. I packed away the last of her things that had lingered in drawers and cabinets. I changed my emergency contact at work from her name to my brother's. Small steps, but significant ones. The house, once filled with echoes of arguments and betrayals, gradually became mine again. I converted Sarah's office into a music room, filling it with guitars and amplifiers. I planted a vegetable garden in the backyard, something she'd always vetoed as too messy. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a middle-aged golden retriever named Max, who needed someone as much as I did. 1 year after the divorce, I received an email from Sarah. My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won out. I've started and deleted this email a dozen times. There's probably nothing I can say that would matter to you now, but I need to try anyway. NASA? I'm sorry, not just for the affair, but for everything that led to it, for taking you for granted, for not being honest about my feelings, for betraying your trust in the worst possible way. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved a wife who recognized your worth, who appreciated your kindness and your loyalty, who didn't look elsewhere for what was right in front of her. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything, really. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I read it twice, waiting for the anger or pain to surface. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Closure. Her words couldn't change the past, but they acknowledged it honestly, perhaps for the first time. 2 years after discovering Sarah's betrayal, I stood in the kitchen of my home truly mine, now in every sense making coffee for two. Rachel was still asleep upstairs, her presence in my bed still new enough to feel like a small miracle. We'd met 6 months earlier at a photography exhibition, where one of my landscapes was being displayed. She'd asked intelligent questions about composition and lighting, and I'd fumbled through answers, distracted by her smile and the way she listened as if my words mattered. We'd exchanged numbers, met for coffee, then dinner, then more. I'd been honest with her from the beginning about my divorce, sharing enough to explain my occasional hesitations without burdening her with details. She'd been patient, never pushing when I needed space, never withdrawing when I struggled to articulate my fears. "Morning," she said, padding into the kitchen in one of my t-shirts, her dark hair tousled from sleep. "Is that coffee I smell?" "Fresh ground," I confirmed, pouring her a cup. "I was thinking we could take Max for a hike today. The weather's perfect." "Sounds wonderful." She accepted the coffee with a kiss. "Though I should probably go home and change first." "Or, you could just keep some clothes here," I suggested, the words emerging before I could second-guess them. "If you wanted." She studied me over the rim of her mug. "Are you asking me to move in, James Mitchell?" "No," I said quickly, then reconsidered. "Well, not exactly. Just maybe a drawer to start? Some closet space." As we sat at the kitchen table, planning our day, I felt a sense of peace that had once seemed impossible. The betrayal would always be part of my story, but it no longer defined me. I had built something new from the ruins, not just a different life, but a stronger version of myself. Later, as Rachel and I hiked through autumn woods with Max bounding ahead, I thought about the man I'd been 2 years ago, broken, angry, lost. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, but I couldn't deny that it had forged something valuable in me. Resilience. The knowledge that I could survive the worst and still find joy on the other side. She leaned her head against my shoulder as we walked, and I felt the last pieces of my old life finally release their hold. Ahead lay uncertainty, of course. No one could promise forever, I knew that now. But also possibility. The chance to love again, wisely this time. The opportunity to trust, not blindly, but with clear eyes and an open heart. The path wound upward toward a viewpoint I'd photographed many times. When we reached it, the valley spread below us in a tapestry of autumn colors, reds and golds and lingering greens, all transforming into something new as the seasons changed. "It is," I agreed, seeing not just the landscape, but the journey, from betrayal to healing, from brokenness to wholeness, from ending to beginning. Some might call it a second chance, but that wasn't quite right. This wasn't a repetition or a do-over. It was something entirely new, built on the foundation of everything I'd learned and lost and found again. It was, simply, the rest of my life. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready for it.